Greetings, spiritual sages, magical mages, and all of you who are listening to this podcast. This is Age of the Mage, and we are up to episode 24. Today's topic is sensitive, and I realize that. And I also know that in no way can we cover the complexities of these issues in one podcast. But I'd like to introduce the subject because in this etheric network that we are building by becoming listeners and beginning to talk to each other and so on and so forth, and extending our magical hands out to one another, it's important to lay some ideas for groundwork and for building of our foundations, simply so that we're all thinking about ideas that might be relevant to our own futures as individuals, and also to our collective future as a group of magicians and spiritual soul energy workers. As we come together in the future and unite to do things, I'd like to just be able to refer to some backgrounds that we've gone over and we've talked about and we've thought about, we've put a little energy into. And so today we're going to talk about the forces of dark and light, angels, demons, these dichotomies that exist. And I want to share my thoughts about these things. I'm beginning to see comments come up that are, assigning this whole project to levels of darkness where I just have to disagree wholeheartedly, of course. But I can understand why this is happening. So I wanted to talk about this. And I know that even my own ideas about this subject could change. We are ever evolving, and I am having experiences, and I will continue to have them, that influence my belief system and my thoughts on these things. And each of you have your own set of influences and your own set of experiences and your own destiny to fulfill, which is also influenced by which experiences you have and how you interpret those. But so I can only share with you my ideas as they stand today, and see if any of you resonate to this. See if this is something that you feel you agree with or disagree, and please share. I have noticed a tendency in the metaphysical world to, as of late, to maybe shy away from topics of darkness or things that are not very pleasant to look at and deal with, because there is a mindset growing, and it may be a very appropriate and very legitimate mindset, that we attract what we focus on. And I know this also grows out of movements like the law of attraction, which I firmly support and believe in. And we get this notion that if we focus on something negative or dark, we attract more of that to us. And also the idea that what we fight actually gains energy from our attitude of fighting or combating it, and that actually makes the thing bigger. The very thing that we're trying to diminish can become bigger thanks to our energy coming at it. And these two ideologies that are inside of manifestation creation and create your own reality type belief systems have merit. I completely agree that we can spend our time just focusing on any one particular area of interest or subject, and lo and behold, we see more and more of that come into our 3D lives. So this is a very basic principle of manifestation, and I don't disagree with that. I also know that an attitude of fighting can actually bring more anger towards you. So on many levels, I agree with that concept as well. However, this is where I'm going to veer away a little bit. And it may be because in my own personal path, I am supposed to carry some of the warrior spirit. And I believe that, quote, fighting something negative might have merit as well. Now, I have been tossing this idea around with other people and getting some good perspective on it. And I'm coming to think that perhaps transformation might be a better focus than fight. And so even if you take this idea of fighting right down to the real world, nitty gritty level, where special ops teams might have to go in and free slaves or free children, free somebody being held against their will, and this involves fighting those that are holding them. Perhaps this could even be, even at that level, seen as a transformation. So I believe this perspective change, this idea of how we view the fight, could affect the energy in such a way that we are able to work with opposing forces in such a way that instead of adding energy to those clusters of negativity, we actually do facilitate a change there. At the same time, we are able to diminish that energy. So that is one thing I wanted to toss out today is this concept and what some of you might think about it. The second thing is that there's also in many beliefs in the metaphysical world and these altered reality movements and belief systems again, we see some people that do not, how would I say it? They don't even acknowledge that there is evil. There's no acknowledgement of it, and it's considered a concept or a construct that is illusion and is not true. I believe a lot of this grows out of the Course in Miracles, which again is a marvelous book that I revere and I have benefited from greatly by being exposed to it. But this particular concept that has grown out in these later years of there is no evil, I think presents a problem for me. Many of you may be more advanced than I and can see what the value is in believing this. Now, for me, I have run up against certain forces and situations that could only be described as evil. They're not darkness, which is a different thing. They have a motivation, they have a clear focus, and they are intending to harm. Now, I suppose we could say that from their perspective, they are not working evil. From the perspective of the beings, the entities, or the forces involved that I have come up against, yes, they may see what they are doing as self-sustaining, self-perpetuating in their best interest and better for, in their worldview, maybe perhaps better for the whole world or better for the universe and the forces within. So from that perspective, yes, we might have a difficult time defining evil if we're on one side or the other, because we would be tainted and biased in our opinions according to what side we're representing. So yes, from that standpoint, I would say, all right, maybe we cannot define an absolute evil since we are not at a vantage point that allows us the entire picture. And I can concede that point. But I'm going to back up and say, all right, but that's true, but we have to deal with where we're at. And most of us are dealing with a 3D reality. We are incarnated in a physical body on a physical plane. And even those of us who are hybrids and are very aware of this and have come into human bodies from other races and species, we are still dealing with many of the effects of the 3D world. And I believe from this vantage point, we do face forces that could be considered evil. And I sometimes use the word dark instead of evil because there are so many triggers that can occur when someone hears the word evil, and everyone has their own concept of what that consists of. But I probably shouldn't do that because darkness is like light. We have darkness in the nighttime, and it's not necessarily evil, is it? It's just a different energy, the absence of light. And then we have light, and it's just the absence of dark. And so they present very different types of energies, and they support different types of work. So my personal opinion is, yes, there is such a thing that can affect us here in this domain that I would classify as evil. And then moving from that into the concepts of light and dark, I'd like to talk about that for a moment. So, as magicians, we may be familiar with terms light and dark magic, or white magic, gray magic, black magic. One of the main things I have seen that separates white from gray from black is when free will is overruled. In other words, again, we go back to how central the idea of free will is to this world and what it affords us as Earth humans to be able to do as we choose our own way and our own path. And this is very vital and very critical for our race. So when we have anything that wants to come between us and our free will, it's a signal, I think, for us to be on guard a bit. Now, there are factors of destiny and there are patterns and things that we may fall into, but we have so much tied to the concept of free will that I believe is truly important for each of us. So we don't want to give that up. We want to sustain free will. And this has to do, of course, with the timelines we've talked about. So in this way of using magic, when you have white magic, this is a type of magic that really sustains the concept of free will. In other words, the magician, the person performing the magic, has to have permission from any that would be affected by this magic in order to do the spell, in order to do the ritual, in order to affect the energy fields. It is a consensual exercise that goes out of its way to sustain the free will of both the practitioner as well as the receiver. When you get into gray magic, you start sliding down that scale, that spectrum, where the magician may take upon themselves, as a result of their opinions and feelings, experiences, they may decide, I am going to help this other person over here, even though they don't know about it. Even though I don't have their full permission, I know they wouldn't mind. Perhaps the magician or the spiritual worker is going to do a healing and hasn't gotten previous permission from the person that they want to receive the healing. And so this would actually, even though the intentions are good, and even though the healer has all the best interest in mind for the person receiving the healing, it is still considered gray magic because the free will might be interfered with from the standpoint of the person receiving the healing. That they didn't have the full choice of, yes, I want you to do this. No foreknowledge, no choice. So of course these could be done with negative things too, but the point I'm making is gray magic can involve a well-intended, a good high intentions, but still be considered gray magic because it has gone around the free will loop. It's found a loophole, and it's not conforming exactly to complete transparency. All right, and then we go down the spectrum a bit more to dark or black magic. Now, black magic ignores the concept of free will in many cases, and it can be, again, done with the best of intentions, perhaps a love spell. It could be a hex, it could be a negative, it could be a curse, but it could also be positive things, once again, a healing or something. But the point here is that the magician has decided, I'm not even going to consult or worry about the person I want to send this effect to at all. And sometimes the effect is even a compulsion. The magician is working on something like a love spell maybe, and says, here, if you drink this, just drink this. This is a great drink. You'll like this. And then lo and behold, it is loaded with compulsion energy towards attraction to a particular person or some such thing. And the person that imbibes the drink doesn't know this. There's no knowledge. There's no agreement to this spell. It is just cast upon them without their knowledge, without their approval, the spell itself even has attachments to it that continue to rob the recipient of free will. So where gray magic might, not ask permission of someone, it doesn't always have these extra components that compel the person to do something after the fact. Whereas the black magic really has additional components attached to it that continue to offset the God-given right of free will to the recipient, that innate right that Earth humans are supposed to, I get in quotes, I suppose, as supposed to have, not that we always do, of course. All right, so this is the spectrum of as it is interpreted in the worlds of magic, the tradition of magic. Now we see this also in religions and in cultural beliefs, like the angel paradigm and the demon paradigm. So you see one is exalted and revered and looked upon as brilliant and at the right hand of God and doing all the right things all the time. And then you have these horrible dark entities referred to as demons that just have no business interfering with us, and we don't like them at all, and they're horrible, horrific, and evil, and they're the cause of all things dark and bad and ugly and negative. And they were cast out by God, and they don't have any light, that they bring pure darkness wherever they venture to go. So you have this, big dichotomy between the light and dark forces inside of cultural belief systems too. Now, there is this concept of, hey, whoever wins the war gets to create the history. So, for my own studies, I have been diving a little bit into the angelic magical traditions, and I have had some concern myself about who these angels really are. They share the paradigm with the demons. They share certain energies. They share the history of a war. And it is questionable to me sometimes exactly where to put my faith. And I am on a personal journey of discovering that, and I will be happy to share as I go. I do have one transmission I received about angels on my YouTube channel, Mary Gabrielle, and you are more than welcome to listen to that. I will do more with these transmissions too, and kind of dive deeper here into these concepts because they're fascinating to me. But I will say that sometimes the light and the dark and the good and the bad and evil versus virtuous is not as clear as it first appears. And we as magicians, as spiritual workers, as soul energy beings, that we want to work with these energies that are connected so strongly to our soul, we have to develop a very heightened sense of perception when it comes to these things, probably even more so than those who are not dealing with interdimensional effects and work, because not only are we confronted with humans and energies that are fairly physical coming towards us that we need to discern, oh, is this good or bad for us, as all people do, but we are dealing with energies that might be in disguise, or we may not have a history understanding that comes through these other dimensions to us. And this idea, if anything, we need to be more discerning and more careful in our work as we proceed so that we can stay true to the alignment we're most comfortable with and not be deceived or not be sabotaged, or that we continue to exercise our free will even as we choose our future magical path, even as we choose the type of spiritual work and the beings we choose to align with. We have to have and value discernment and spend time with exercises and intuitive work that can help us in this area. We, unfortunately, those that are aligned with magic, magical arts, and those that feel and know their galactic families and represent themselves as starseeds, some of these groups have been under persecution for a very long time. And we get tossed into the bin with all things dark, ugly, and demonic. Now, we know this is far from the truth, but it does happen. And so we, I think, owe it to ourselves to understand as best as we can who and what we are aligning with, and for what purpose and for what reason. And when we stand in truth and when we stand in light that is based on our confidence that we are aligned with benevolent beings, that we have alliances with those who are standing up for the most beneficial future for the human race, this will give us strength to withstand attacks upon us or our character or our projects, because we will know in our heart that we are aligned with very good forces. Now, this is not to say that someone could be using dark magic to work for the right reasons. And this is why it will become, this is going to grow into a very complex discussion that we'll have over the course of many, many podcasts. Because it is, again, a slippery, kind of elusive thing to wrap our minds around, that access through dark channels for the right reasons might be necessary. And some of you listening are probably doing this and are familiar with what I am talking about. We, again, to form a community and to etherically connect in a productive and benevolent way with each other, we must allow for a variety in approaches. But I also think we have the right to call in those who clearly have the best intentions for themselves, as well as for their loved ones, friends, communities, and for humanity. And those that do not feel a resonance with this are probably not going to be aligned to this particular etheric network. And that's okay. That's okay. We are supportive of all kinds of traditions, all beliefs, all experiences that have happened to you. I am supportive of that. And our gathering project, now under the name of Modern Masters, is very supportive of that. I have talked to many types of people all over the world. Some who believe in angels, some who are vampires, some who are shamans, some who are shifters, others who are demonologists and study that paradigm in order to do good works, in order to heal and rescue those that need freedom. So I am open to all methods, ways, and experiences that I hear about. But I do want to say that my bottom line, my foundation, and the energy that I hope to build up through this network will definitely share the goal and the aims of elevating our race, elevating the human species, elevating Mother Earth, and bringing more and more freedom to individuals around the world. And in fact, we might even be able to help those that are enslaved in other realms, in other dimensions. And so this is what we have in common. Not so much how we do this, but that we feel drawn to do this. That we feel drawn to move all living beings, all sentient creatures, out of forms of slavery and into more and more freedom. This is what I feel will unite our network and unite us as those who wish to bring the light and truth into the world. So I wanted to open up this discussion because, like I said at the beginning, we are getting comments about it, and we will all continue to receive questions from others from the outside of our network regarding these things. And I wanted us to all start thinking about them and see where each of us, how do we each feel about these issues? Where do we draw our own lines? because it is slightly different for each one of us, isn't it? I'm so grateful for you, and I will close for today's podcast. And I invite you to look at these issues and see where you stand. And the more clear you form ideas around what defines light, truth, and goodness for you, the more that energy will surround you. And no matter what form of magic or spiritual work you align with, that will absorb those energies that you have determined best suit yourself and your work and your destiny. Thank you very much. Once again, I'm sending so much love and support to each of you. I know that each one of you has ups and downs, and you have successes and you have defeats. And my hope for you is that you will value your successes. You have no idea how powerful you really are. Some of you may be grasping that about now, because the shifts are happening and your awakenings are coming, and so much more knowledge about yourselves is opening up. And I know some of you it's clicking. You've got it. Others of you, I just want to keep encouraging, because that light is going to dawn, and you are going to know how extremely priceless and valuable you are to this effort and so many others in yet to come. May you each have a blessed day or evening, depending on when you're hearing this broadcast. It does span all space and time, doesn't it? And we're each listening in our own space and at various times, and that brings its own energy too. That everything's energetic, and so even receiving this message through your own channels affects it. And the best thing I can do is just send you my love and hope that gravitates to you. So I will be back soon, and I'll say goodbye for now.